going to make chocolate babka. Well, today I'm going to make the babka, the breading part of it, and then we'll fill it tomorrow because it's got to sit in the refrigerator for at least 10 hours. So I'm going to start with 3 large eggs. I'm going to add a cup of sour cream. Four teaspoons of vanilla. And 1/4 cup of cold water. Now, I measured it out and then I stuck it in the refrigerator, so it's been there for about 30 minutes, getting chilled. We want to keep this dough very cold so it stays light and airy. One of the things, so babka is like it's a Jewish bread pastry that has been passed down for generations and generations, but it's oftentimes really dry, and that's because people overwork the dough and or they don't keep the ingredients cold enough. So there we have that. Now in my mixing bowl I have 5 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add 2 1/4 teaspoons or 1 packet of yeast, instant yeast, a teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 cup of sugar. Now I'm going to put it on stir just to mix those ingredients together. And while it is still on low, I'm going to slowly pour in the wet ingredients until it just gets combined. Then we'll turn it up. And I'm going to turn it up to medium, high, and let it knead the dough for about 6 minutes. But first we're going to let it combine everything. You need to give it a little push. Stirring because we're making a mess. Knead like this for about 6 minutes, and then we'll come back and add butter. Okay, so I've turned the mixer back down to low. I have 16 tablespoons of butter that is softened, that I've cut into little cubes, and I'm going to add them one at a time into the babka dough and let it get incorporated for about 15 to 30 seconds, and then we'll add another one. This is a dough, like I said, that has to refrigerate overnight, and it doesn't rise a whole lot because there's a high fat content of butter, but also because we don't give it heat. We keep it very cold. We don't heat it up until it's in the oven. While you're making it, the dough gets wrapped around your dough hook like this. You just need to pull it down, pull it off. That's why I wear a glove. Mush it into the bottom and start again. So once all of our butter is incorporated, We're going to turn this on medium-high and let it knead for about 6 minutes. And then we'll come in and check on it. If it is one smooth ball that is pulling away from the sides and sticking to the bottom, kind of, it's good to go. We'll continue kneading it for another 9 minutes. If not, we have to add more flour. This is the tricky part of babka, because if you add too much flour, it becomes really dry. But if you don't add enough, you can't roll it out. Incorporated. I'm going to flip this up one more so it's on medium high, and we're going to leave it for 6 minutes, and then we'll be back. So our dough is coming off of the sides but still sticking just slightly, so I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour, and then we're going to start this up again. I don't think I need more than that. I think that would be the perfect amount. Exactly what I needed. If you can see in, it's coming all the way away from the sides now and becoming one big ball. So all I needed was 2 more tablespoons. We're going to let this go for the next 9 minutes. Let the mixer do all the work of kneading the bread for you. And then we're going to put it in our bowl. Okay, so I have my really big bowl. I have 1/4 cup of vegetable oil that I'm going to pour in the bottom. And then I'm going to take my hand, and the reason I gloved it was so that I could rub the oil all the way around the interior of the bowl. This will make sure that your bread doesn't get too dry while it's in the refrigerator. Also, having a lid. If you don't have a bowl that goes in the refrigerator that has a lid, then I would suggest covering it with plastic wrap and make sure it's tight. See? Now, see how easily it came off the dough hook? That's because it's ready. All I'm going to do is gather it all up, plop it into the bowl, put my lid on it, and I'm going to refrigerate it until tomorrow. So, chocolate babka, the dough is in the refrigerator still, so now I'm going to make my filling. I have 14 tablespoons of butter, and this is because I'm making 2 loaves. And we're going to melt the butter, and then we're going to add some sugar, 1.5 cups of sugar, and 6 ounces of dark chocolate. But first, we're going to melt butter. And I cubed it when I put it in here just to make it easier to melt. It'll melt faster that way. And this stove is on medium. So most of the butter is melted. I'm going to add the 1.5 cups of granulated sugar. Just stir that in. We're going to wait till it starts bubbling just a little, and then I'm going to turn off the heat and pour the chocolate in. It's going to be 6 ounces of dark chocolate, and we're just going to let it melt for a minute and then come back and stir. But first, we've got to get it to boil. So if you notice, bubbles are starting to form all along the edges. So once we get a little farther in, I'll turn off the heat. And this is my 6 ounces. I've roughly chopped it. It's not, uniform in any way. All right, I'm going to turn it off. set the chocolate in. I'm going to stir it a little to make sure all the chocolate gets into the hot mixture. And then we're going to leave this for at least a minute so the chocolate can melt, and then we'll come back and stir it together. So it's been a minute. That chocolate should have melted. I'm just going to stir. If it hasn't, you can always turn the burner back on. We're just trying not to burn the chocolate, so it would appear that it all melted. So now I have 10 tablespoons of cocoa powder that we are going to pour in. And then 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. We're going to stir all this together, combine it, and then let it cool for a little bit before we roll out our dough and put it in the middle. All right, so our chocolate filling is done. Our babka dough has been chilling, so now I'm going to roll it out. I have 2 cups of flour, but I should not need that much. Really, you just need a sprinkling on your board so that you can roll out the dough without it sticking. And I try to get it about 1/8 of an inch thick. Looks good. All right, now I'm going to pour the chocolate into the middle. So this chocolate babka I'm making today has no nuts in it. If you choose to make one with nuts, you can. Same recipe, just add some nuts in it if you want. I happen to be making this for a client who does not want nuts. So I'm taking my offset spatula and I'm spreading that chocolate mixture around. All right. Mostly everywhere, right? And then I have some chocolate wafer cookies. Now, my great-grandmother would put chocolate brownie pieces in hers, but I kind of like the texture of the chocolate wafer cookies. So I have a cup of them. And all I'm going to do is spread them out all along. Now we're going to roll this up just like we would with cinnamon rolls in a very tight roll. Now I have 2 pans that I have set up with parchment paper slings. What I'm going to do is cut and lay in here, and we're going to layer like this, back and forth in the two pans until we fill them with our rolls of babka. And I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my knife so that it doesn't get stuck again. You want them about 1.5 inches thick, just like that. Another small one here. I'm going to come back over this one and give it a little extra oomph. All right, so I'm going to put a towel over it and leave it in a warm and dry place so that it can rise for the next 2.5 hours before we glaze it and bake it. So our chocolate babka has been rising for the last 2.5 hours. Now I'm going to make the glaze to go on it. And I've preheated the oven to 450 degrees so we can slide the bread in. I have 1 large egg and 2 tablespoons of water. And I'm just going to take a fork and kind of mix those together. It's kind of like an egg wash, but we're going to add sugar and cocoa powder. So I have 2 tablespoons of sugar and just 1/4 teaspoon of cocoa powder. You don't need a lot. Just another chocolate kick. And there we go. Now I'm going to take a regular old pastry brush and I'm just going to brush the tops of the babka. This will keep it nice and moist while it bakes. And I have put them on a cookie sheet so that if I have any spillage, it doesn't spill on the bottom of my oven. If you have watched any of my cooking videos, you have seen that I usually put things on a cookie sheet. Because when I don't, bad things happen. I'm going to go back over here and add some more. You want to just distribute it evenly between the 2 loaf pans. And there we are. Now I'm going to slide these in the oven. It's 450 degrees. As soon as I close the oven door, I'm going to reduce the temperature to 350 degrees and then we're going to bake it for an hour. So our chocolate babka took about 55 minutes in the oven. And it's going to sit here in their pans for about 15 minutes and then I'll pull the sling and we can see what the bread looks like. So I have this nifty little tool that I can take and just run along the outside where it might stick to the pan. And then we just lift it out. And there we have our beautiful babka. Two loaves. We're going to let these cool before we slice into them and get to eating.